kind of had a little bit of natural talent. Was it natural talent? I don't know, but I could play a bit, and then it was like, no, this is something I really want to pursue, and I think it's my personality. I just want to be the best that I can be. I think in whatever, if I was driving taxis, I want to be the best taxi driver. It's just that I think that military mindset, isn't it? You want to be good at something.
This episode contains adult language and adult humor.
Since when have trumpet players ever been considered adults?
If you are easily offended by these types of conversations, consider switching to the oboe. Welcome to the Trumpet Gurus Hang podcast. I'm your host, Jose Johnson. My guest for this episode is Mark Upton. Mark, well, he's trumpet royalty. The son of two professional trumpet players, Mark was destined to become a world-class player. As the principal trumpeter for the Royal Marines Band, Mark regularly performed for the royal family, and his powerful playing has been featured in performances at the Royal Albert Hall. And as the trumpet tutor at the Royal Marine School of Music, Mark is paving the way for a new generation of amazing royal musicians. So, pour yourself a big glass, pull up a chair, and let the hang begin. All right, welcome to another exciting episode of the Trumpet Gurus Hang, and I am joined by a new friend. Let's put it that way, Mr. Mark Upton. Mark, welcome to the show. How are you, my friend?
I'm great, thank you, and thanks for inviting me on here. So it's an absolute pleasure.
Oh man, it is my pleasure. I've been following your stuff on social media, and was really like, wow, how can I get a hold of this guy? And then I had a couple people that commented about you and saying that I should get you on. Vaughn Nark had mentioned you, and Larry Meregillano mentioned you, and so I'm like, okay, I got to make this happen. So I'm just happy to have you on here. How's the business going in the UK these days?
It's good. I mean, it's the music scene's coming back. Seems to be lots of gigs, but obviously I'm in the Marines as well, in the Royal Marines Band. So a lot of my time is spent with the Royal Marines. But I'm not actually in one of the bands anymore. So I work at the Royal Marines School of Music, which is the sort of training school for getting musicians through sort of 2 years of training and teaching them how to march, how the military life, and how to play the trumpet. So that takes up a lot of my time, which is great.
Yeah. So I've been fortunate enough to interview a few guys from the London freelance scene, like Tom Walsh and Louis Dowdeswell. So I've gotten kind of a feel for what the working life is for the freelance musician, but being in a military band, like you're saying, that's a little bit of a different gig going on, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's really different being a military musician. Obviously you've got the initial training, which is sort of 2 to 3 years, and we get sort of trainees joining up at 16. We get them joining up in their late 20s, and it's really different. It's a different kind of way of doing business, I think. And you get sent to different bands. You get sent all over the world. We've got the operational capability. Going to various conflicts. The military role, and sort of the first aid role. So there's so much stuff that we do, really, and it's completely different from being a kind of civilian musician. But I'm just about to enter my sort of 26th year in the Marines. So it's been very good to me. I've had lots of platforms for solos, at the Albert Hall and all over the world, really. So it's the military, they've given me a really good kind of grounding, and it's great to have that opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I know, like here in the States, I'm not too far from Washington, D.C., And we have a lot of the military bands, like the premier bands, are based in DC, and each of the arms have their own, like the Army bands, the Air Force band, but
I've spent some time with the President's Own.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were over there doing some gigs in Washington, and the President's Own invited us there for the day, and we spent a day with them, looking around the band room, seeing how they do their business, and it was such an amazing day.
Yeah,
and they're some really good players as well. They're amazing.
Yeah, and it's I always find it fascinating because two of my teachers are former military players, and I would hear stories from them about that life, and the advantages and disadvantages of like anything, but how they loved it, because they both were lifers. They stayed in until they were at the point where they had to retire. But there's a tendency in like if you're a jazz player to kind of specialize and focus on being like in a band like the Airmen or the Army Blues, or one of those that's fundamentally a big band, that's 90+% of your playing is in that venue. With the Marine band, the Royal Band that you're with, is it a lot more diverse, or are you a little more specialized?
It's so diverse. I mean, it's, we could be predominantly wind band and marching band. We do a lot of sort of contemporary wind band music as well. We have a lot of people in the Marines that write a lot of music as well for the annual Mountbatten Festival of Music. And we do the full orchestra, we do small orchestras, brass quintet, jazz gigs, big bands, rock bands. You kind of name it, really. We kind of do a bit of everything. And we've got a lot of great musicians that you can pull out and put into those situations, and it sounds great.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you saw the Jubilee celebrations last week or the week before.
I did not catch any of those. No.
So our corps of drums were front and center of the stage, with Queen playing "We Will Rock You."
Oh, okay.
It was amazing.
Yeah. Well, it
is diverse, and we could be doing music one week, next week we could be doing first aid courses, military sort of engagements, deployments. It is so diverse, and I think the thing that I really liked is no week was really the same.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of just changes each week, and get put on things, taken off things, sent somewhere. And that's kind of the military life, isn't it? I've spent sort of 5 months on board a ship, sailing over to America. We did the east coast of America, and did some exercises there. And we spent, quite a few weeks in New York, Florida, Norfolk, with a naval base there. So yeah, it is so diverse.
Yeah. Well, that keeps you on your toes, I guess. So,
yeah, it really does. Yeah.
Yeah. So in your position as one of the faculty there, I guess, if you will, you're saying that you have to do so many different types of training to prepare the new recruits. So in terms of the music stuff, are you like teaching like general music and preparation, or are you teaching like specific trumpet geared things? Or
so at the school we have professors, and all they do is teach music, and I'm an instructor, so we support the trainees, the students, through day one, kind of show them how to iron their clothes and do sort of the daily military things, inspections. There's so much kind of involved with it. But yeah, I do teach some trumpet as well, in support of what the professor's doing. And I also teach all the jazz at the school. I take the big band at the school. And yeah, there's so many different combinations that we do. So we have brass quintets, we have to do fanfare team rehearsals. There's the wind band, the orchestra. It's a for the trainees, it's a really busy week. Everything's compacted in, as well as the practice and all these rig ups and rehearsals. But they've got all the academic stuff to do as well. Harmony, history, elements, oral. So it's a kind of high intensity course, I would say.
Yeah.
And there's some really great benefits as well. The trainees can study for a degree there, so they can get that rather than going to music college and kind of racking up loads of debt. You can come to the school, and in the Marines you can study for that degree, which is great. Yes, there's loads of great things happening. I think that the hardest thing is getting people through the door, recruitment, because we are still part of the Royal Marines. So that can be challenging. But since COVID, it's all been pretty good. We had good numbers and stuff. So it's great.
Yeah, I can imagine. So with your work there, obviously that keeps you pretty busy. With between the teaching and performing and anything you have to do. Do you do any freelance gigs or solo gigs outside of the Marine band?
Yeah, I do. I'm quite busy. I do a lot of deck work with Sid Lawrence. I played lead trumpet for Cuda Music, the Bond tour with Warren Ringham, which is sadly coming to an end of this year. I think we've got maybe five maybe shows left. And yeah, just all sorts of different shows and gigs really, as they come in. That work's really starting to pick up, which is great. I also do quite a lot of teaching when I can sort of fit it in around work and gigs. So yeah, it's crazy busy.
Yeah, well, it's definitely one of those things where when you don't have the work, you miss it, and then when you have it, it just seems like
Yeah, I think the kind of the COVID, I think it made all musicians kind of reflect and coming out of COVID and gigs start coming in, you really kind of start to appreciate all the work, and you start to really enjoy it. I think I'm enjoying playing at the moment probably more than I ever have done, probably because I had the 3 years of not doing anything.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it certainly it has given a lot of people a fresh perspective on how lucky we really are as performers, and educators. When you're used to being in front of people and interacting with people face to face, and then you can't do that, it really can take a toll on you. So I'm just happy that things are kind of mellowing out, at least for the time being. I'm keeping my fingers crossed, so.
I think it was about I think two months before we went into lockdown, I was online, just looking at stuff on Facebook and the internet as you do, and I was looking at all this different trumpet stuff, and I came across Padovani mouthpieces, and Louis. Do you know Louis Martello?
I do not.
No, he's a trumpet player in the UK. He put me in touch with the two guys, Marcus and Matthias, in Brazil. And basically, to cut a long story short, I had a kind of great lockdown project for producing mouthpieces with them. So, we spent 2 years over lockdown developing these mouthpieces, which was just such a nice project to be able to do because we weren't playing. They got released, I think middle of April, they were released in the UK and around the world. So we've created a lead, a studio, a classical and flugelhorn. It's going really well. It's they're selling really well. We're looking at the moment of developing some other mouthpieces. Maybe because the brass band world really big in the UK. So we're looking at focusing on some cornet mouthpieces over the next couple of months. So yeah, there's kind of loads going on there.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is taking advantage of the situation. You know, I know a lot of guys that during the lockdown period were doing projects like that, whether it's developing new mouthpieces, new horns, other kind of gear or tools, or even just working on different kind of projects, writing books, doing video series. So it's finding a new creative outlet for yourself, as opposed to what we're used to. And then of course some people just got depressed and didn't do anything. So but I mean, I'm sure that as a Marine, that you do have that adapt to survive kind of mentality. So
And it's interesting. I saw you had Larry Meregillano on here. Obviously, Larry's a great friend of mine who must have been let me think. 2000, I think it was about 2011 or 2012. And it's funny because I was doing the same job that I'm doing now. So I was working at the School of Music, and I got put there because I had a hernia operation, or I had a hernia, and I went to see the consultant, and they misdiagnosed it. So I was sent through kind of our health system, going through loads of different departments, and it was taking like a year and a half. And the doctor said, just don't play the trumpet. So I didn't play for like a year and a half. Anyway, it finally got sorted out. They sent me to the school while this was ongoing. I guess to give me some work. And I got in touch with Larry. I saw some of his videos online about all the isometric stuff. And we got talking. And then at the time, Larry was working on the cruise ships. And he said, hey, I'm in Southampton in a couple of weeks. I said, well, this is great. Why don't I come down and meet you, and I'll bring you down to the school, and maybe you can do a masterclass there, and we'll go out for lunch afterwards. And he did. So I went and met him for the first time and took him to the school. Great masterclass. We chatted loads. And from there, we became kind of really good friends. And every time Larry came over to the UK, I'd always go and see him. We'd go and hang out and stuff, and it was really great, And then obviously he's came on board with Eclipse trumpets on one of his trips over here, and then he invented the CTS, which kind of really helped in lockdown, just to kind of keep the chops in, keep the chops active, and I think that was a great tool that he's developed at CTS. Yeah. So have you tried it? Have you got one?
Oh, I have one. Yeah. I've known Larry for a few years as well, and was doing some of his exercises, the pre-CTS exercises, and they were very helpful. And then when he came out with that, I'm like, okay, let's give it a shot. And So
at the time I'd moved house just before COVID, and we were in a kind of 3-bedroom cottage, semi-detached, so I couldn't really play loads in lockdown. And all of a sudden I had a phone call saying, we're doing some lockdown sessions, a recording session, can you do it? And I was like, yeah, when is it? They said like a week. And at this point I hadn't blown probably for a couple of months, and Larry was developing the CTS at the time. I mean, he'd just sent me one to try out, and 5 days on his CTS, and it brought my chops back. I mean, I was doing a fair bit of blowing with a cup mute in, but it's not the same. And I think I really felt that because when you're playing all the time and doing gigs, you've got that maintenance, and you're keeping everything going, but then just to stop and have a gig come in. And I think that taught me something about myself, that I can, I've worked out that for me, I don't know what it's like for anybody else, but, I need I need 5 days of good practice with a CTS, and I can get, to the top of my game with my chops, which is I'd never even thought about it before, because not blowing wasn't really an option,
Right. Well, it's things like that. I mean, there are always people that are going to be there are people that are going to be supporters, there are people going to be detractors, and then the rest of the people tend to be on the fence about it, and until they try it, they're really not going to have an opinion one way or the other. But for me, the thing that I do love about it is that it's Larry has not positioned this as being a way of helping you to be a better trumpet player in terms of your technical ability.
Sure.
It's keep the muscles, keep the physical aspects, the mechanical aspects of what it takes to play the horn in place, so that then when you go to practice, then you don't have to worry about doing the maintenance to keep the embouchure muscles firm and the compression correct, so it takes one of those things out of the equation, so you can actually spend more time working on your music.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And, I think I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago, and, he's just come back from, was it ITG a couple of weeks ago?
Mm-hmm.
He got down there, and, sales are going great for him, and I think, he didn't create the machine. He invented the system, and the system really does work.
Yeah. Well, cheers to you, Larry, my friend.
Yeah.
you can send us our commission checks later. And speaking of great trumpet players, besides yourself and Larry, you had the opportunity of studying with one of the all-time greats there in London. So can you tell us about your experiences with Mr. Watson or Watkins?
Yeah. So it was really funny how it kind of came about, because obviously Derek was endorsed with Smith Watkins with Richard, and we'd just bought a first set of 14 Smith Watkins fanfare trumpets, and my God, the old fanfare trumpets that we used to have in the Marines, they were so old, so difficult to play, so out of tune. It was really difficult. And so we just bought these brand new set of fanfare trumpets, and I thought, I really need to get some lessons, And I think I tried Tony Fisher. Tony Fisher said he wasn't doing any teaching, so I called Derek, and we just started chatting, and I introduced myself, and I said, look, I'd really like to have some lessons with you. And he says, I don't teach. And I said, Derek, I said, look, I'm in the Marines. We've just bought 14 Smith Watkins fanfare trumpets. I said, come on, the least you can do is give me one lesson. And Derek's laugh was very distinctive, and he just started laughing. And he said, all right, okay. He said, when can you do? Because at the time I was living down in the West Country, so it was like a 4 or 5 hour drive. And I gave him some dates, and he said, okay, come to my house, and we'll have a few hours. I remember my first lesson, I was driving, I was just so excited, get to this lesson. And yeah, from there, we kept having lessons, sort of regular lessons, and it was amazing. I mean, some lessons we just wouldn't do any playing at all. It was just like talking and advice, and the really nice thing was, it was so nice having Derek, ultimately in the end, a friend. And, he never minded me calling for advice or anything like that. But to have someone of that caliber, on the end of the phone and teaching you, it's incredible,
Yeah.
I was really lucky. He really helped my playing. And, I've got a few funny stories, but one of them, at the time, I was asked to play MacArthur Park, the James Last MacArthur Park. I think it was 2009, and I'd mentioned this to Derek, and he said, "Oh, you come up and we'll work on it." And I said to him, I said, we got to the lesson, and I said, okay, I said the first bit, the flugelhorn bit, I said, that's fine. I just want to work on the high stuff, you know. And Derek was like, I'll be the judge of that. Let's play the flugelhorn bit, and it absolutely ripped it up, absolutely, you know. And you know, we spent a lot of work on sort of phrasing and understanding phrasing, and it was just. Yeah, it was just incredible. It was just such a great opportunity. You know, I learned a lot, and yeah, we became friends, and yeah, the rest is kind of history. It was just, you know, such a shame that he got taken away, you know, so early. But another thing, I remember my first, well, I think it was my 10th birthday, something like that. My parents bought me a hi-fi system. And it had a turntable, it had a CD player and tapes. And they bought me my first CD, and it was James Last. And I'd had this CD, and I used to listen to this track, Love Changes Everything. And I didn't realise it was Derek until he started teaching me. And I went back and looked at this album. I was like, oh my God, I've been listening to this guy for so many years and didn't even realise, you know. But he's done some great albums. I think the Clark Terry After Dark, that session, that was just amazing. I think Clark Terry wanted him to come out and play lead for it, so he flew out and played lead for that album, and it's just incredible. Yeah, sound.
Yeah, I think Derek is one of those. Yeah, definitely. If you are a trumpet aficionado, and particularly a lead trumpet kind of, you know, geek, that you definitely know who Derek is. But a lot of people, like you say, they've heard him, but they had no idea who he was. Yeah. And you know, his sound to me was just so amazing. I mean, and this is just recording because, you know, never having a chance to see him play in person. I mean, it had to be kind of interesting to be sitting next to that guy and being able to hear him play and just to soak that sound in. And you know, your sound is very reminiscent of his sound, that fullness, the just the I guess like we used to use the term wall of sound. So, you know, just this very big solid sound, not shrill, not thin in the upper register, but just like this pure blast of sound with so much core. So, I mean, was that kind of, did you already have that approach to your sound prior to working with Derek, or did Derek kind of help you to bring that together?
Derek really helped me develop all that side of things. I mean, like, you know, I think my sound, I always had quite a nice sound and a big full sound. So if I go back to the beginning, my parents are both trumpet players. I don't know whether you knew that. So my dad was in the. If I digress, remind me about that question, because I probably will. But yeah, my dad was in the Royal Marines Band. He spent 26 years. 13 of those years he was on the Royal Yacht with the Royal Family. So he had a really kind of charmed career there. He played, you know, all the royal weddings, and then he went away on the yacht on their honeymoons. And so, you know, it's just such a great career. My mother studied at the Royal Academy in London, trumpet. And you know, she was a great classical player, and so I had them sort of bringing me up and teaching me. I mean, they always sent me off for lessons with different people, but at the early stages, it was them teaching me. And you know, I used to hate it at the time. You know, parents are making you practice, and like I wanted to be out out with my friends, and I'd hear the doorbell go, and it'd be, oh, it's Mark coming out to play, and my mum's like, no, he's doing his trumpet practice, and I'm like, oh wow, you know, this is the worst thing ever. And I totally appreciate everything they've done now, you know, and they know that, I've told them that. So, you know, I'd do my practice, and my mum would then come in and she'd be like, okay, let's do some scales, let's do some transposition, let's do some sight reading. And I'd go and put my trumpet away, and my dad would come in and go, right, let's do some duets, let's go through your pieces, you know. So, you know, I wouldn't say I was forced to do it, you know. I mean, I probably could have stopped. I wanted to play. I always wanted to play. When my dad was in the Marines, I remember we moved house. My dad got a posting to Deal, and my mum and dad bought a house. And while we were waiting for this house to be built, we moved into Deal barracks for a while. I think it was 6 months, something like that. And it was my dad worked with the band literally just across it's like 50 meters away, probably less than that. And I remember it's the summer holidays, my dad's working, I'm just messing about, I'm on school holidays, and he rings my mum at the house, says, get Mark to come over to the band room. And I went over to the band room, walked in, and there was the whole of the band there, you know, big band, 70, 80 piece band. And I walked in, and they were waiting for me, and they just played Star Wars. You know, I'm like 4 or 5 years old, and from that moment on, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in the Marines. You know, I wanted to travel. I saw all the opportunities that my dad had with travel and stuff like that. So I started playing the trumpet when I was about 6. I think I started getting proper sort of lessons at the age of 7 at Northbourne Park, where I was at boarding school, and yeah, from there it just evolved, and then I joined up in sort of 1997. I can't remember what the initial question was now.
It was about Derek and his impact on your sound.
Oh yeah, so you know, I always, you know, even going through training, you know, I always had fairly good range, fairly good sound. And then I went for lessons with Derek, and you know, he had me doing lots of different exercises, range exercises, opening up the aperture, and you know, really kind of filling that sound up. And that, I think there is an element to the technical side, but I think the biggest thing for me is having that sound concept in your head before you play. You know, you listen to enough lead trumpet players. You know, I used to love Maynard Ferguson, like Churro Sound about Cat Anderson. You know, you listen to those players, you listen to something enough, and you kind of adapt to it, don't you? You play what you hear, you know, and want to create. And you know, being in the Marines, I've always had to kind of play different situations, different gigs, you know, daily, weekly. You know, I've never had the opportunity to say, right, you know, for the next 6 months, I'm just going to play big band music, or I'm going to do lead trumpet, because, you know, in the Marines, the opportunities are far and kind of few between for that kind of work. That I say is the more sort of commercial lead playing. So Derek really kind of helped me kind of push that. And then, you know, I started doing the solos at the Albert Hall. I did the MacArthur Park sort of the first year. And then, you know, that was arranged or rewritten by a good friend of mine, Trevor Norton. And you play something like that, and then the next year they go, oh, Mark Upton, he can play really high notes, and he can do this. And then the next guy comes in and he writes, and he'll be writing, you know, up to double G's, you know, and then the following year it's like double A's, and then the following, you know, and I think for me, my journey, that's helped me, because I've kind of had to do it and adapt, and you know, they're pretty high pressure gigs. You know, I don't know whether you heard the what was it? The Trumpet Legacy that I did in 2019. So I remember I think I was somewhere teaching at a school, and I'd just finished, and my colonel rang me, and he said, we're just looking at programs for MFM next year. We'd like you to do a Maynard Ferguson tribute. I was like, okay, this sounds really cool. How long? And he said, well, 8 to 10 minutes. I was like, okay, that sounds great. And the more I thought about it, I thought, you know what, it'd be great for me, and I would love to play a Maynard Ferguson tribute for 10 minutes. But looking at our audience that we get at the Albert Hall, I mean, we pack the Albert Hall, 3 nights in a row. And I just thought, I don't think our audience would get it. I think, you might have 10% of that audience who maybe pro Maynard Ferguson and would understand it, but I don't think it was the right thing to play. So I spoke to him, and he said, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, how about, we do a tribute to, some of the greatest jazz trumpet players in history. And he really liked the idea, and I went away and thought about which pieces I would do. And obviously, you have to start with Louis Armstrong, Miles Davis, Harry James. It was really hard to pick. Originally, I mean, the first time I went in for the meeting, I put all these ideas forward, and it was going to be like 25 minutes. I put Mark Terry in there, loads. They were like, we need to cut it by at least half. So I think they ended up giving me sort of 12 minutes. And another good friend of mine, Nick West, he arranged it all, put it all together. Really lucky. Do you know Peter Moss?
No, I do not.
Peter Moss. He's a trumpet player in Florida, I think. Yeah, Florida. And he's a real Harry James aficionado. He was good friends with Harry James. He knew him very well. And he sent me some of the music. So we had a lot of support from there. Through Larry Meregillano, Arturo Sandoval introduced the piece at the beginning, which was really nice. And then I had the idea that towards the end there was I wanted to do a night in Tunisia, and we kind of finished the piece with the Star Trek. I thought it would just be a great idea for Arturo to come back on the VT and say, hang on a minute, hang on, you've forgotten, Dizzy Gillespie. And Arturo started playing Night in Tunisia. And then on the second phrase, the mass band came in and accompanied him. It was all tracked, And then I came in, took the B section and took it to the end, and it was such a fun thing to do, and I even found an old piano, and we put a keyboard in an old piano, so it looked great on stage for the Louis Armstrong section, and I kind of did the whole thing, the concept, getting the Nick West to put the music together, and yeah, it came off really well. And I think that recording, got so many YouTube hits, and I think that one, and maybe a couple of others that I did a few years before, kind of really took, well, people started taking interest in my playing career, and but it stems back from the Marines, giving me those opportunities to do that, because there are some absolutely amazing trumpet players all around the world, but to have a solo spot at the Albert Hall nearly every year, it's a big venue, and it's a lot of pressure, that 6,000 whatever people a night, it was getting live streamed to hundreds of thousands, if not millions. It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, and those are very exposed parts as well, when you're when you're trying to cover everything from pops to to Dizzy to Maynard, there's a lot of stuff that's got to be done, and man,
and I think for me, having done years of transcribing Louis Armstrong solos and transcribing Miles Davis, and all those, that's just what we do as jazz trumpet players, and being able to take that hat off and instantly put another hat on and play another style, it was quite tough. I remember I look back at the recording, and the Miles Davis section, I didn't quite settle into it until like the third or fourth phrase. And I can hear it. I don't know whether I'm sure other people can, but you know, I don't know whether it was nerves or whatever, you know. But I was never happy with the beginning of going into the Miles Davis section. I don't know why, but the Louis was quite easy because that was the one to start with, and I guess the Star Trek one, that's just kind of play and hope for the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like I remember when Arturo released his Trumpet Evolution album, that you know that was to me so masterful. To you know, you listen to it and you still knew it was Arturo, you know, but yeah, his paying tribute to the lineage that we have as trumpet players, especially in the jazz genre. But to hear him pull off so much of the stuff, and you know, of course, he threw in some Rafael Mendez. You know, he had to throw in a little bit of the technical side there too. But you know, to be able to go from style to style blew me away, because you know, just being able to do that. But to do that live, that takes it up a complete different notch, because you don't have the advantage of going, okay, well, today I put on my Miles hat, and then tomorrow I'm going to put on my Maynard hat. You know, you've got to be able to just, you know, bang, bang, bang. And each of those guys had such unique, not only unique sounds and approaches to the horn, but I think it's driven by the personality. And so you had, like, you know, if we use Maynard as an example, Maynard was very, very, he was larger than life. You know, everything about him on stage and everything was just this huge personality. And Miles was, you know, he was definitely a personality, but his was more about being like restricted or drawn in, and you know, a very almost inward facing kind of thing. And you know, you can't, it's like you have to shift that mental gear to go between those two, because you can't approach Maynard's music with Miles's mindset. You can't approach Miles's music with Maynard's mindset. So you know, kudos to you for even just, you know, trying to take that step to do that live. But not only do that, but to pull it off. And I know you said you weren't happy with the Miles things, but that maybe that's actually a sign that you actually were channeling Miles, because Miles was never happy with anything anyway. So
maybe, yeah. You know, and I think as well that, you know, going back to the style thing, you know, I would get up in the morning, I'd go into work and I'd say, right, we're doing brass quintet now, and then we're doing orchestra, and now we're doing big band. You know, so I think that there is an element to, you know, kind of being that military musician, having to adapt to different situations. So, you know, maybe that helps. You know, as well as transcribing, you know, as we spoke about. But I think, you know, I think transcribing for any trumpet player is a must, because, you know, we've all done it. You know, you start teaching someone and they've got the generic kind of trumpet sound, which is nice, you know. But I think to find your own voice as a trumpet player, you know, you have to be able to emulate all these different voices and pull and push away the ones that you like and dislike to create your own sound. And those sounds put together will create the ones that you like, will create the voice that you like, you know. And I think that's really important as a musician, to find your own voice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's so many aspects to that. I mean, there's the sound of the instrument. So that's part of your voice. But then it's the phrasing, the concepts, you know, just the way you approach music, your ideas. So that all comes together to create that voice. I mean, like, you know, to take Miles, for example, you know, you could always identify Miles by his sound, whether it was open horn or Harmon, but you could also identify him by his phrasing.
Yeah.
You could listen to something and go, oh, that sounds like Miles. And and I think that sometimes we get confused with when people talk about finding your own voice. Sometimes it's losing track of all of those components and how that creates the unique proposition that you have as a trumpet player.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So like for you, you're talking about, transcribing, picking up, concepts from people. So who are some of the big influences that you've had in your development as a player?
So my first ever jazz album that I was actually given by someone when I was probably 11 years old was an Arturo album, Straight Ahead. And from that moment, I was like, "Who is this guy? This sounds amazing." I think it was live at Ronnie Scott's or the Ronnie Scott's label, and from there, I got into Arturo Sandoval a lot. And I think going back to that sound concept, I mean, his sound is absolutely huge, isn't it?
Oh man, yeah.
It's incredible. I obviously I listened to a lot of Maynard. I really like some of the old Maynard recordings, like Danny Boy. It's just when he goes from that double C down to the bottom G or something, it's just flawless. Live recording as well. Clifford Brown, Woody Shaw, Miles Davis. I think all the kind of mainstream stuff. I used to listen to a lot of Chris Botti, and there wasn't really anyone I didn't like. One thing that I kind of kick myself now, when I was 16, you know what it's like when you're 16. You think you know everything, you're invincible, and all of that. And I put a few Louis Armstrong CDs on, and just didn't like the quality, so I didn't listen to it. I came back after a few years, and started to kind of really start to appreciate it, and I was start to take it a little bit more seriously. I mean, when I was studying at the School of Music in 1997 to 99. We were so lucky to have Don Lusher take the big band at the school. He was the trombone professor. The trombone professor now is a guy called Gordon Campbell. He's a great trombone player in the UK. But at the time, we had Don Lusher, and he was fronting the Ted Heath band at the time. He was an amazing player, and he got us tickets for a local concert at the Guildhall in Portsmouth. And we went along, and at the interval, Don Lusher came and got me, and he took me backstage, and he introduced me to Kenny Baker. And this was probably about 2 or 3 months before he died. So I got to meet Kenny. I think from that point on, really, I sort of started to take things a little bit more seriously. Whereas I think before I joined the military, I was kind of joining for the crack. I wanted a good laugh, good stable job, just play the trumpet, and I kind of had a little bit of natural talent. Well, was it natural talent? I don't know, but I could play a bit, and then it was like, no, this is something I really want to pursue, and I think it's my personality. I just want to be the best that I can be. I think in whatever, if I was driving taxis, I want to be the best taxi driver. It's just that I think that military mindset, isn't it? You want to be good at something, and the trumpet for me, I think, is probably one of the only things that I'm kind of really good at. I couldn't imagine myself sat at a desk answering phone calls or doing paperwork all day. It's not really me.
Yeah.
So I think having a creative job where you can do stuff is great. I really love it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I just want to bounce back to your to your position with the Royal Band. When you're working with younger students, with these new trainees, what do you think right now is kind of maybe is there a common thread of things that are missing in younger players coming up?
So I think the biggest thing we see, I mean, from auditions is it's just the fundamental techniques of airflow, tonguing, and flexibilities. No, they're kind of the three basic things, aren't they? And if you've got those things in place, it's easier to build and build and build. But I think we have to spend a lot of time focusing on these very basic fundamentals to get the basics in. And not everybody, we have people come from all walks of life. Not everyone, gets a trumpet teacher. It might be someone in a local brass band just giving them a cornet and maybe giving them a few lessons to get them going, and then they get going in maybe the junior band. And they can start with not a great technique, or people just maybe can't afford lessons. I think that we get such a diverse group of people joining, totally different standards. So it can be really difficult. There are some students that you say, okay, yeah, this is great. They're gonna be able to pass out early because they can do this stuff, and we'll get them through their exams earlier, which is great. So it gets them to a band earlier, which obviously gives a pay rise and stuff like that. And some will be there longer, but I think it's definitely an individual training package for each person, depending on the standard they were, the knowledge that they got, because there's all the academic stuff as well. My trumpet players need to go out having a basic knowledge of jazz. They're not going to be great jazz trumpet players, but to be able to sit them in a corner while someone's dining or there's a cocktail party going on, and they can get through sort of 15 tunes, they can improvise a little bit and get around it. For me, that's where they'll get the bug for it, isn't it? And then where they go on from there is kind of up to them. I'm trying to give them the bug, because I think that as a trumpet player, the jazz stuff's kind of the really enjoyable stuff. Because you're not dictating, I must play that note at that point and that note, and it all needs to be together. There's a little bit of room to be flexible, isn't there, with jazz? And you can play it how you're feeling, or whatever you want. And it's trying to say to them, come on, we need to start doing these working these changes and working these patterns and learning some of the theory behind it. And that it can be difficult, because bearing in mind, we could get someone who's got a really good knowledge of jazz. They might have played piano for a long time, or we could get someone who has no academic knowledge at all, and it's so diverse. So it's small steps, isn't it? Small steps, get the bug, and they've got the rest of their lives. Like I did. Unfortunately, when I joined the Royal Marines, there was no jazz package at all. It was. I mean, we kind of did. I say jazz. It was like 6 or 8 piece dots, but everything was written out. So there was no kind of improvising course. And the jazz course at the Royal School of Music is something that I put together about 3 years ago. So it's a fairly new syllabus, and it's great. We're getting a lot of trombone, sax, and trumpet players passing out, and they're going out and doing jazz gigs, and it's kind of all on the Royal Marines Band's social media and video clips, and they're really enjoying it and going out and doing it, and that for me that's really rewarding.
Yeah.
You know, there's no better reward than seeing people enjoy what you've taught them. But yeah, from a trumpet point of view, you know, there's so many aspects, and the training package, as I said before, is so intense. You know, when you think, we don't really do it with trumpet, but you know, some instrument categories like oboe and bassoon will teach someone in sort of two years, 8 months, to get them up to sort of grade 8, maybe even diploma standard. In that time, you know, which is double reed instruments, so they're quite, you know, challenging. Bearing in mind, I'll have to play another instrument on parade, because we don't have bassoons on parade. So there's normally cymbals. They play cymbals and bass drum. So that's not actually too difficult. But yeah, it's good at the school. You know, it's such a great place to work. It's, you know, we've really kind of, I think the actual training syllabus and training package itself, taking a musician from here and taking them up to there, and you know, that's just the first part of their journey. You know, they've got the rest of their lives. You know, I thought musicians don't really come into fruition until they're kind of 40s, I'd say. So you know, they've got the rest of their lives.
Yeah. Well, that's great, and you know, it's a great opportunity for people. I mean, you definitely have to have the mentality for it. You know, it's not for everyone, but being a musician is not for everyone. So, you know, there's that too. All right, well, Mark,
just touching on that. You know, one thing I didn't mention was, before they come to our music school, they have 15 weeks of basic military training. You know.
Yeah.
So that's tough. You know, they're out in the field, they're getting cold, they're getting wet, it's miserable. You know, they're getting taught, you know, life skills. You know, all learning what life's like in the military. Basically, takes them from a civilian into a soldier.
Yeah.
And that, you know, for any young adult or you know, 16-year-old, for me, it was, you know, kind of made me maybe a bit more confident. You know, it kind of makes your personality.
Yeah.
Makes sense. You know, it makes you think smart, and you know, you kind of a step up on life, because you've had all this training. You know. You know, and it teaches you not to panic in situations. And, you know, it's great. It really is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, before we wrap up today, I've got 3 segments we got to get through. These are standard segments I have with all of my guests. And the first one is actually something we've talked a lot about so far, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper in it. And this is a segment called Sound Off, and it's brought to us by Barkley Microphones, my good friend Michael Barkley. And it's about approach to sound, and you've talked a whole lot about that. But let's kind of maybe take one last stab at your approach to sound, particularly being in the position you are, where you may have to go from being playing in a wind ensemble to a brass quartet to a jazz band to a parade. You know, there's so many people now. That's what we have to do. You know, if you're a freelance musician, you need to be versatile and be able to do a number of gigs. So, what advice could you give to people to be able to have a sound or to work on their sound so that it fits within the confines of the specific gigs that they have to do?
Sure, I'd say listening. That is the key. Having a sound concept in your head, and you know, goes back to the transcribing. You know, get really, when you are transcribing, yes, the notes. It's nice to be able to play the notes, but the whole point of transcribing is for that sound. You know, the note shapes, creating the right note shapes. You know, are they attacking with the articulation? Is it a breath attack? Where does the vibrato come in? How does the note tail off? You know, go into so much detail. You know, that note is not quite on the beat. It's slightly late. You know, it's going into so much detail and having that sound concept in your head. And I think that really, really is the key. You know, I wouldn't say I particularly sit here playing long notes, you know, I do long notes, but, you know, I don't particularly do that for a sound point of view, you know, to create different sounds and different textures and styles. And so, yeah, there's that element, the listening, the transcribing, and put yourself into as many different situations as you can as a musician. I think it's always good to be not in your comfort zone. You know, just try and push yourself as much as you can, because that's how you develop and that's how you learn. And it's always good to be the small fish in the big pond.
Yeah. That's where I like to be. I like to be that guy. But
yeah.
You know, I have to say, you're the first person that I've asked this question to that's talked about the shape of notes, and I think that's a really very cool way of thinking about things, and it does affect your sound. So yeah, thanks for that, man. That's a great tip. I'm going to think about that one myself.
Okay.
So, all right. Our next segment is called Geared Up. It's brought to us by Venture Mouthpieces, Venture where technology, design, and craftsmanship intersect. Use the code TrumpetGurus21, get 10% off your order. And this is about gear. And, you know, I know that you had mentioned earlier that you were working on, you had worked on a mouthpiece design during COVID, and that you also designed a horn with Eclipse. So I think what I'd like to ask you is, in terms of your designing your own gear, obviously you weren't finding things that fit your specific playing needs as well as you would like them to. So, you know, what approach did you take in developing that? Because I think that's an important thing for people to think about, your thought process when they're looking to find gear for themselves. What kind of things would you particularly need to look for in an instrument in terms of maybe like response or, you know, core of sound? And yeah, how do you make those determinations in, you know, figuring out how to make changes in your gear setup?
Sure. So before I designed my own trumpet with Lee, the MU series, I was playing on Eclipses, and they were absolutely fantastic horns. You know, they really are world class. And I had all interchangeable lead pipes, and I was playing on a Mike Lovett studio, which I sent off to James New to get the what do you call it? I've got one here. The adapter, you know, the gap adapter.
Yeah.
And that's it. Yeah. And I was playing around with it, and then I played on a few horns that didn't have the interchangeable lead pipes, and I just got thinking, you know, that's the horn. There's kind of, in this section of the trumpet and the mouthpiece, there's so much going on. You know, there's so many sleeves and elements that can change the airflow. So I kind of decided that I thought I should be playing on something that's not got the interchangeable lead pipes. And I was chatting to Lee, and I said about developing a horn, and Lee was, you know, really up for it. And then I went away and thought some more about it, and I was thinking, well, you know, what's a really good trumpet that I've played, that I've really enjoyed playing? That's great. And I thought about my old Constellation, the Maynard model, and it's got a really tight lead pipe with a big bell, and so I thought, well, why don't we try this approach? So we did. You know, we spent quite a lot of months sort of developing. I think 18 months developing the trumpet. You know, I think some of the braces were slightly moved. But it was great. It was such a fun experience, because I'd go to Lee and, you know, I'd say, "Can we try this?" And he's like, "Okay, yeah, we'll try it." And he's in a workshop and he's unsoldering everything and he's soldering it back on, and he gives you the instrument. I'll take it away for a few weeks and then try it and say, okay, can we try this? Can we try maybe this bell or this, you know? And so for me, I think, you know, having that tight lead pipe and the open sound, it really opened my sound up playing on that horn. And I think I sound really good on that horn. And I guess that's kind of all that matters, I guess. You know, I feel comfortable playing it. It's nice and free blowing. And yeah, I think we just developed something that ticked all the boxes, really.
Yeah. Well, I think that so many people, when they buy gear, it's just, it's like buying a suit. They just buy it off the rack. So it's like, I'm just going to buy this horn. And then there may be some problems inherent with the design of the horn. Not saying it's a poorly designed horn, but there's some design elements that don't match with the way they play.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the biggest thing is having the correct setup for what you're doing. That, that's a big thing. I talk to my students a lot about this. I remember, so my first trumpet that I got with Eclipse had a big red bell. It was huge. It's got a big, massive lead pipe, and it's a really big trumpet, but beautiful for playing jazz. It's like really silky, really velvety sound. We put a lot of sheet bracing in there to make it heavier for the mass, and I remember I really wanted to play this horn, and I had a small band, big band gig, and I was playing it, and I think we were doing something like String of Pearls or something like that. And I got halfway through the piece, and I was like hanging out. I was knackered playing this horn. I was like, man, this is absolutely killing me. And then the interval, I did put in a tighter lead pipe, and it made a big difference. But yeah, definitely the kit that you play on, it has to fit what you're playing. And I think the mouthpiece as well. I mean, I think it's a lot of people think, shallow mouthpieces make you play higher. I don't, in my opinion, that's not the case. Shallow mouthpieces give you a brighter sound. If you're playing lead in a big band, you want that cut sound. A commercial lead player, you want that. But I'm certainly not going to play that doing a jazz gig on my big horn, because it's just going to sound terrible, So you'd want a deeper cut to get that mellow sound that you want, and the ball, the instrument, the bell, it all plays a big part. I like Lee's large yellow lightweight bells. For me, they work really well. I think this is one of my other horns. My others are packed down at the moment for a gig. But this is a medium red, and it plays really different. I think the red bells really give you more of a kind of unique voice. They're a bit easier to control the sound. But that's just my opinion. I don't know what others think about the red and the lightweight.
Yeah, well, like you said, you like it, and that's, at the end of the day, that's all that matters. So
yeah, and not only that, as a trumpet player, to be able to design your own horn, it was such fun. It was so fun.
Yeah, I bet. So yeah, there's so many different variables in there, and it's great to work with someone. I don't know Lee personally, but I know a lot of people that have worked with him over the years, and he certainly is knowledgeable. So to work with a master craftsman like that and get to learn a little bit more about what makes a horn work.
Absolutely, yeah. And the great thing with Lee is, I'll pick a horn up, or we'll make a modification. And bear in mind, Lee can't play the trumpet at all. There's no interest in learning the trumpet. But his ears, he's a musician. maybe he doesn't play, but the craftsmanship that he does with building them, and you know, he'll hear things sometimes that I can't even hear in the workshop. You know, he's got such good ears, and he'll say, oh, yeah, no, you need to try this one. Oh yeah, that's better. You know, he's just so attuned to his instruments and the sound and the specific person. You know, I guess what I do for setting up a horn to what I'm playing, he will, I guess, do the same, but in a bigger circle, if that makes sense. You know, yeah. The player, the sound, and the trumpet modifications. He can see all that and hear the picture and say, no, you know, try this. Yeah. You know, he's such a craftsmanship.
Well, that's great.
Craftsmanship. I mean, craftsman.
Craftsman, yeah.
Craftsman, yeah.
There we go. I thought maybe say one of those, little slangs that you guys use over there in the UK. So, anyway, final segment of the show is something that we call the rapid fire round. It's brought to us by Robinson's Remedies, rapid relief for your sore, tired chops. And it's a series of questions that kind of bounce all over the place. So, are you ready for this one, Mark?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Here we go. First question. Who's the biggest influence on your life that is not a trumpet player?
My granddad.
Okay. What's your favorite book?
My favorite book, History of the Jazz Trumpet by Scotty Barnhart.
All right. What's the worst movie you've ever seen?
Dude, Where's My Car?
If you weren't a trumpet player, what would you want to be?
I think I'd be a chef.
Okay. What's your favorite drink?
Can I have two?
Okay.
It's gin and red wine. Gin. They're on equal par.
Okay. All right. You're going to have a dinner party, and you can invite any 3 living people outside of friends and family because they'd already be there. But any 3 living people to your dinner party. Who would you want to have there?
Queen. Arturo Sandoval. And Tom Cruise.
Okay. That'd be an interesting party.
Yeah.
All right. And you're going to have 3 additional chairs at your dinner table, and these can be filled by any 3 people from history. So any 3 people that are no longer with us.
Louis Armstrong, Miles Davis, Maynard Ferguson.
Oh, okay. Wow. That is definitely a party that I want to be at as well. Lacquer, plated, or raw?
Lacquer plated. No, raw. I'm going to go raw.
All right. What's your favorite quote?
Ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight? Man.
A little Jack Nicholson there for us. What is your greatest fear?
Heights.
All right. You could be granted one superpower. What would it be?
Obviously not to fly because I don't like heights. One superpower. It's a tough one. I don't know. Superpower. Can't think. I've gone blank.
That's not much of a superpower, Mark.
Oh no, yeah.
I can't think of it. That would be your superhero name.
Go on, give me some options.
There's all kinds of options. There's strength and speed and.
I'd certainly like to be able to run faster.
All right, we'll go with that one. You'll be a faster guy. It might help your fingers too, so you could.
Yeah.
All right. What aspect of trumpet playing do you find to be the most overrated?
Practicing high notes.
And what aspect do you think is the most underrated?
Basic fundamental technique.
All right. You could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice about music. What would it be?
Don't be cocky.
All
Listen
right.
to everyone's advice. I think as when you're young, it's you think you know everything, don't you? And I think as you get older, you appreciate things more. And
very true. All right. And while you're back there, you're going to give your younger self one piece of advice about life.
Say that again, sorry?
You're going to give your younger self one piece of advice about life.
Practice, practice, practice.
Okay. And final question for you, Mr. Mark Upton. What do you want your legacy to be?
I want people to enjoy my music. And I hope that I can carry on the kind of trumpet pedography, and keep it going. Keep the trumpet as an art form going and moving forward all the time. I think that's important.
Yeah. Well, you certainly are in a great position to do that with your work with the Royal Band and with your musical performances. So you're well on your way to accomplishing your goal. So I wish you the best of luck in your life and your career, and really appreciate you spending time with me today. This is a blast to get to know you.
Yeah, thank you. Same. It's been great, and it's an honor.
Oh, well, the honor's all mine. And make sure you check out the show notes, and there'll be links to Mark's webpage and some great video stuff that he's got going on. So if you want to catch some of his performances, definitely hop on there. They are inspiring and infuriating at the same time. I listen to him and go, oh my God, I hate this guy. But it's really good stuff. And also, put a link in there for my boy Larry for the CTS. So if you're interested in the CTS, definitely check it out. It's worth its weight in gold, definitely. So thanks for joining us for this episode of The Hang. And as always, make sure you like, subscribe, share, do all that great stuff. Follow us on social media. Follow Mark on social media. He always posts some great stuff on his Instagram page. I follow that a lot. So until next time, folks, peace and slide grease. We out. Thanks for hanging with us today. This podcast is all about creating deeper connections through our mutual love of music and the trumpet life. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast and also like and share this episode with a friend. We want to see The Hang grow for show. Please support our sponsors and consider becoming a personal supporter of this podcast as well. Remember, for less than the price of a bottle of valve oil a month, you can keep this podcast moving smoothly. The Trumpet Gurus Hang is recorded at the Candy Factory, a co-working space and social club located in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Jose Johnson is the executive producer. Post-production editing is by Mitch Bowers. Our opening theme song was composed and performed by Lexi Signor, and our closing theme music comes courtesy of The Greatest Funeral Ever. Incidental music is by Ethan Swayze and Jose Johnson. Graphic design by Ann Kirby of the Sweet Corps. The Trumpet Gurus Hang podcast is produced in collaboration with the So Good Lancaster Media Group.